So welcome to my class, and in this I'm going to talk about, again, continuing on with Unit 7. We are doing market equilibrium, and in this we are going to talk about simultaneous change in demand and supply. That means there's a change together, hand in hand they go, the demand and supply. Both witness a change, either way, but both will change. So what happens to the market equilibrium then? Okay, so before we go on, let me just reiterate or just go back to tell you that we did market equilibrium and the change in demand, that means increase and decrease in demand on equilibrium price, in the previous classes. And in the next class we talked about, on a given demand curve, that was the chain effects of an increase in, this is increase in supply, and this is decrease of supply for good on equilibrium price. Alright, so in this class today we are going to talk about simultaneous change in demand and supply together. That means just shifts in demand and supply together. So before we go on, just see the diagrams. Again, let me just to understand that increase in demand means a rightward shift of the demand curve, a new demand curve. What is increase in supply? A rightward shift of the supply curve. That's a positive slope. Can you see that? And then if you were talking about decrease in demand, it is a leftward shift, as you can see in the diagram absolutely at the bottom. And here when you see decrease in supply, it's a leftward shift. So now together, now equilibrium is where demand is equal to supply, where they intersect. So in this, when we are talking about simultaneous change, one will be increase in demand and increase in supply. So that's what we will do here. That means we are going to talk about simultaneous increase in demand and supply curves. And in the next class, maybe I'll just tell you what about that is a simultaneous decrease in demand and supply curves. And when we do this, you will notice that there can be that the increase in demand will be equal to increase in supply. So what will happen to the equilibrium price? And even if you think so, the price won't change, though the quantity will increase. Quantity means quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied, both. And when you're talking about if the increase in demand is greater than increase in supply, then what happens? Then the price will increase. The equilibrium price will increase. So also the equilibrium quantity. And if the increase in demand is less than increase in supply, then what will happen? The price will fall. The equilibrium price will be below the original equilibrium, and the equilibrium quantity will increase. So just have a look at these three diagrams as I just spoke to you about these three. So when you see that the increase in demand is equal to increase in supply, what happens? There is a new equilibrium undoubtedly, which is shown by that the colored pen, pink pen. Now what happens is that the equilibrium price remains the same at P original, P0, and the equilibrium quantity will increase, and the equilibrium will shift rightward. Now looking at the other one where increase in demand is greater than increase in supply, what happens? As you can see, that E is the initial one, you have a new equilibrium which is higher than the original. So the equilibrium price will increase. Can you see that? There's an equilibrium price has risen, and obviously if you just draw perpendicular right to there on the x-axis, you'll see that the quantity has also increased from there, from that point. And in the last we see that the increase in demand is less than increase in supply. So in this case, you see that the equilibrium falls, equilibrium price is less than the original, and of course the equilibrium quantity will be more, but we are going to discuss each of these situations separately. Here I just want you to have a fair idea as to what are we going to do, because it's not just drawing these diagrams and it comes to an end. There is a chain effect in every diagram that we're going to talk about. How there's a contraction and expansion between supply and demand, which settles to a new equilibrium. It's not just that you draw these, but remember, when you draw a diagram of demand and supply, you must first put the equilibrium, and then when you draw the new one, you must again put the new equilibrium. Otherwise, if you leave the equilibrium then and there, there's a lot of confusion because it cuts at more than one place. So with that, we are going to do the simultaneous increase in demand and supply when both are equal.